Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we have a 2025 update of one of the most popular videos ever put out by this particular YouTube channel. And that, of course, is about beach towns. Now, the state of Florida has a lot of them in general, a lot of things to consider in this category. So I want to focus on a couple things contextually. One, we're going to do the Gulf Coast only. So south of Marco Island, all the way up through the Florida Panhandle. Two, what is a beach town? I'm defining it for this video as whether you're in a single family, villa, townhome, condominium, anything in between, can you walk to the beach realistically? Three, instead of just pulling out the cheapest, I think the comprehensive take is most useful. So I have basically classified that I think there's about 25 beach towns that stand alone from that radius I described. So why have the data for all 25 in order to pick the top 10 if I don't just share all of it? So I'm going to rank them. We're going to go speed round, try to like a minute a piece, 25-minute video somewhere, hopefully. 25 down to number one. One will be the cheapest, 25 the most expensive. And this year I have the most data points that I've ever had in the formula. There's some slight weighting of what I deem a little bit more important, but we have 6, 7, 8 total factors that make up this formulaic process that I took to build this versus 3, 4, 5 in the past. So this should be the most comprehensive, the deepest, and the most accurate take if you agree with my methodology. I really hope you enjoy the take. My name is Adam Hancock if we have not met. If I can assist you anywhere, especially in the Southwest Florida real estate market, Tampa Bay, Sarasota, Naples, Greater, please consider reaching out. And without further ado, let's hop in. All right, let's work our way down. Number 25 on our list this year and our most expensive beach town is Siesta Key, Florida. So this is one for those seeking that prototypical beachfront private luxury. It's a narrow residential island. You're not going to see hotels. You're not going to see large commercial centers, just private estates tucked between the Gulf and the intercoastal. So the name of the game here is raw seclusion. If you're a luxury seeker, but also want that kind of off the radar privacy, could be an interesting spot. Ranked number 24 last year, slipped to number 25 based on recent sales. You have an active median listing price right now at 2.7 million, and last 12 months, the median of sold properties ended up at 1.2. All right, number 24 is Gasparilla Island, Florida. The name of the game here is remote old Florida charm. This little place, which is also home to a spot called Boca Grande, is a pure untouched piece of the state, I'd say. It's known for its tarpon fishing, its historic downtown, a place that you can really navigate almost 100% by golf cart alone. Small town elegance at its finest. So yes, does creep to the more expensive side, of course, but you're paying for true seclusion, and on top of that, probably a spot that protects its roots more than most. Was number 25 on our list last year, and does have a median sold price of just under 3 million, but due to total cost of living, active listings, and average home value, it falls in the second most expensive this year. All right, number 23 is one of my personal favorites, and that is Madeira Island, Florida. So this one is great if you're seeking an authentic, no high-rise beach lifestyle. This island offers that quintessential old Florida feel. It's in an unbeatable way. You have low-rise cottages, walkable neighborhoods. You have that beach bike vibe that you'd picture online. And it slipped a few spots this year into a more expensive category because prices are creeping. But if you're craving that charming village by the Gulf, it could be an interesting spot. You said at a median sold price over the last 12 months of around 1.9 million and an average list right now at 2.7. All right, number 22 on the list is Lido Key, Florida. This one is ideal for those that want city convenience and a balance of being really close to the beach at the same time, which does not get that common the further you go on here. So geography-wise, it's near and dear to my heart because it sits about 3.5 miles one way to my office headquarters in downtown Sarasota, and therein kind of lies the value. You have the best of some of the best beaches, best of some of the best shopping, and you're not really far from anything. So the idea is central proximity, which is one of my favorite value equations. Lido sits below Longboat Key, another popular island. Madeira, which we mentioned, is above that. Then on the other side, you have Siesta Key that sits right below you, which is a really popular one. And then Siesta Key, which we already mentioned, sits below that. And then you're in the district of one of the major shopping thoroughfares called St. Armand Circle. It's like a bougie, upscale, 100+ shops, boutiques, restaurants. It's also coastal. Siesta Key Village is on the north side of Siesta Keys Island, which is 4 or 5 miles below this one. The bay's in between. And then you have downtown Sarasota to the west, which is the other place you want to be close to. So a lot of offerings shoved into one very small place. So this one actually held its number 22 spot, same as last year and the year before, I believe. You had a sold price average over the last 12 months, sold price median rather, of 1.7 million, and the current median active listing price is 2.2. All right, number 21, which I just mentioned a second ago, is called Longboat Key, Florida. Hinted at this a little bit, but you would go here to find a peaceful, full-time coastal living thing. This is a great homestead option, basically. So yes, still love the water, all that comes with the Belleair Island, but maybe you don't want that spring break seasonal crowd swinging in as heavy. This is a place that does have public beach accesses, but not in a way that would be as friendly as a Treasure Island or a Siesta Key, etc. You're going to see a much bigger blend of full-time residents and non-rental snowbirds here than you would in some other places. It slipped just one spot from number 20 to 21 on our 2025 list, but for good or bad, you have a median sold price and an active median listing price that sit both right around 1.2 million. All right, number 20 on our list is Naples, Florida, and this is polished, upscale, beachside living. When you get to this part of the state, especially on this video, we're going just Gulf Coast. We're not considering South Florida, some of these other higher end areas. This is 1% of 1% land. If it is for you, it's like no other, but it has to be for you. East versus west in this part of the state is very different than a lot. You'll have a $30 million property over here, and you'll have a median of 515K, like 3 miles to the east. So you really got to hone in. But if you get in like the Aqualane Shores, the Port Royale, the moorings, you have luxury homes, you have upscale dining, you have manicured streets, deep water canals, lovely downtown right behind you, and then full Gulf front in front of you. It truly is paradise on earth if that's the paradise that you're seeking and you can afford. This year we set at a 12-month history of 1.4 million in median sold cost and a median list price of right under 1.8. All right, number 19 is Captiva Island, Florida. We're going to stick with the Fort Myers and Naples greater area for a moment and talk about a secluded tropical escape at its finest. This is as tiny and lush and intimate as a Florida beach can possibly get. You're going to see no big developments here. You're going to have colorful cottages. There's nature everywhere. The ultimate hideaway for those that want to escape and disconnect. Held strong with its 19 ranking this year, which was the same as last year. You had a sold price median of 1.3 million-ish over the last 12 months and an active median list of around 2.2. All right, number 18 is Marco Island, Florida. This one I'd say is nice if you're a boater and or you just like a little bit more active waterfront lifestyle. There are tons of canals. It seems like there's golf access everywhere. And what I especially like is it just strikes a nice balance of waterfront homes. You have resort style amenities, but a more peaceful southern tip docile thing all in one package. Does sit on the pricier side of this particular list, but you have a sold and a median listing that sit equally around 1.1 million. And every time I look, I think even that could be a little bit conservative in the affordability and perspective terms that what I've personally seen on the island. All right, number 17 is Belleair Beach, Florida. So we have 2 first-time appearances on this particular video. One is the Tampa Bay, Florida market, and 2 is a sold and median list price of under $1 million. I personally like Belleair for the private low-key beach style living. It's quiet, it's residential, and amongst a minutia of different beach towns that surround it, it carves out its own little slice of paradise. No resorts, a lot less tourists in general, and then a big enough strip of white sandy beaches to make it dangerous. Over the last 12 months, I clocked a median sold price of around $885 and an active median list price right now of just under $1 million. Number 16, a place that I spent many of my formidable years growing up, and that is Siesta Key, Florida. So this one, now that we have a handful of other beach towns under our belt, I think gives you an interesting alternative. It's a juxtaposition conversation. So if you're honing in on the Sarasota, Florida greater market, then this offers things that maybe Lido Key, Longboat Key, Anna Maria Island, these other ones on the list, don't in the same exact way. One is world-class beaches for the location. So Siesta Key Beach is often ranked as #1 beach in all of America. It has quartz white sand that's very unique, doesn't get hot to the touch even if it's 100 degrees outside. It is very long from parking lot to water, so people kind of stack like this, but they all kind of jumble in a similar area around these 5 lifeguard stands for the most part. Clearwater, just looks like paradise in person as it does online. It all butts against a touristy kind of shopping eating district called Siesta Key Village. All the action's north in the island. Whole thing's 6 miles one way to downtown. Sold and median over the last, believe it or not, 12 months, and active list as well, is around 1.1 million. So this one, while it does seem like everything is completely haywire, has not been like a $10 million average home price historically. All right, number 15 on our list this year is Sanibel Island, just like it was last year. So I mentioned that Captiva a few spots ago, a little bit more expensive. That is actually the sister island of Sanibel. Sanibel is the bigger sister. Both of these exist in the northern Fort Myers, western area. And like a lot of these kind of islands where they really stand out compared to many other parts of the state that I've spent time in is they're less commercialized. They feel much more tied into nature. You're not going to see high rises everywhere. So if you're viewing it as a homestead residence and you seek that kind of remote environment, these really stand out when you get there in style. Now, a couple of anomalies within that with Sanibel particularly, shelling one. People come here if you're really into seashells. They're unique. There's a high density of them. That's very big. Pastel color. They're kind of, if you look that up, if you haven't been there before, it's really interesting. 2, wildlife refuge. There's that. There's biking trails. And interesting proximity also to the eastern part of Lee County, northern Fort Myers. You have Cape Coral there as well, which has like more waterfront canals than even Venice, Italy itself. So all in all, pretty interesting. The median cost in both the listings and the sold over the last 12 months sits right about $1.1 million. All right, number 14 on our list is the 30A district of the Florida Panhandle. Think Seaside, Rosemary, the Hamptons of the Sunshine State. Now, the thing with the Panhandle, where I actually graduated college, it's very lovely, but it's different. Within that whole conversation, you have this strip of beach towns, like designer beach towns on this road called 30A that are unique to say the least. Seaside was like a manufactured town that's coastal. Like, that's where the Truman Show was filmed. It literally looks like Pleasantville. It's built more for, it's got a really interesting story if you ever want to look into it, but it's built more for biking and walking than it is for even driving. And it feels like that. If you visit for a weekend, you can get romantic about it. It's like dropping Savannah, Georgia in the state of Florida. And then you have Rosemary, you have a place that looks like Greece. You have like a bunch of different towns to pick from. So it's pick your poison, but it's all paradise. It sits in front of beachfront, emerald green waters. The one thing is it's a commitment. If you want to do it and you can physically do it, amazing. But it comes with trade-offs of once you get there, you're there. Like I said, you're closer to Mobile, Alabama than you're not. Also, it lies low, has an open warm Gulf water, not as protected as certain states to hurricanes, things like that. That doesn't take away from it being absolute paradise on earth, let alone the Sunshine State as a whole. So there's that. The one thing with this area, if you look it up, very, very expensive niche, but surrounding it, a lot of prospective affordability. So it lands on number 14 on our list for that reason. The median price sits at 1.4. If you look up properties online, especially in like a seaside or something like that, you're going to see 4 or 5 million as well. That's why you go to median. But this one pocket is not representative of all the town that surrounds it, which makes it even more interesting. All right, number 13, we are talking one of my underrated favorites on this entire list. It's called Indian Rocks Beach. This is another Tampa Bay, Florida, Gulf Coast centric option. And just like a lot of its counterparts, it represents a more laid back, docile, homestead kind of place. Once you get there, you have a couple miles of beachfront, but there's a lot of things that surround it. So you sit below Clearwater, you sit above St. Pete, you're in between a lot of unanimously tourist popular beaches. And it's a lot more advantageous for a homestead than a random vacation. And because of that, it carves out a really nice place if it's your primary residence. But like most places in Tampa Bay, because a lot of what makes Tampa Bay special isn't all in one area. So downtown St. Pete is on the bay. Downtown Tampa, Hyde Park, South Tampa is all inland. And then there's not just one beach to pick from, there's a lot of different ones. You don't have concentrated, expensive value in one area like you do in Sarasota and Naples. Because of that, you get a really nice little slice of paradise at a price point that's much less. You're going to sit in the high 7s and the low 8s on both sold listings over the last 12 months and a median active listing price right now. All right, number 12 and 11 on my list. We're going to kind of do a combo platter together because we have a tale of two ends. Clearwater Beach, 12, St. Pete Beach, 11. Clearwater Beach is basically the northernmost tip of the Belleair Islands in Tampa Bay beyond like Caladesi and Honeymoon. And St. Pete gets you to the southern end. The way I'd compare these is not really a price thing alone. They're very similar to each other on the list, but they also, in just price alone, you're gonna see anywhere from the mid 7s to low 8s from a median cost, whether that's active listings or sold history at any given time. So you would say, why do I choose between them? Well, Clearwater, being popular just like St. Pete, puts you in a more lively city environment, I would say. I wouldn't say it's like a urban city, but when it comes to beaches, there's gonna be more going on. There's festivals, there's larger hotels, it's walkable, there's more things going on. It's not like it's a Miami by any means, but for Tampa Bay, it's more interesting. St. Pete's gonna give you a more laid back, prototypical Florida beach town with enough stuff. I mean, you still have all the tourist traps you'd want. You have plenty of beach frontage, beaches beside you, but it's going to be not quite as city-centric as Clearwater. Downtown St. Pete, albeit on the bay, and St. Pete Beach being on the Gulf, they're almost parallel because downtown St. Pete is also southern to the town. So you got a little bit of action of left to right when it comes to that as well. But all in all, these two would give you a healthy juxtaposition of Tampa Bay as a whole. Okay, we've made it to the top 10 cheapest, and number 10 being Bonita Beach / Barefoot Island. The name of the game here, I think, is Naples in betweener. I talked about that southern Naples area and also Marco Island being more in the 1% land. You have a very high median cost. It is a place that you can't find often, but it's either for you or it's not. If you go 8, 9, 10 miles above that, you hit this area, Bonita Springs adjacent, and that gives you a lot of similar characteristics. Same Gulf Coast line, different beaches, a little bit more laid back. Everybody's going south. You sit a little bit north, save a ton of money, but it doesn't cross you into getting too far off the reservation, right? So you're kind of in between Naples, you're south of Fort Myers, very coastal, and you just have a healthy balance. And it comes with a very big discount, being that the sold price over the last 12 months set at about $624K. So it drops off the table, like I said, about that 1% Naples very quickly. And even the active listing median right now is only $899. All right, let's do another combination, and that is number 9 and number 8. And we're talking Madeira Beach, Florida, and Treasure Island, Florida. So the reason that this combination makes sense to me is that it's another case to Tampa Bay that because of the variety and because of how the town is so separated, value isn't all condensed in one spot, which creates a lot more perspective affordability because everybody doesn't agree what's the best. It's in the eye of the beholder. These two towns make one of the biggest cases that exists. So we talked about St. Pete Beach. Well, Treasure Island sits right above it. It has some of the widest beaches on the entire Gulf Coast of Florida. You have plenty of room. It feels more spread out. You don't feel like you have the same access to that as you do to St. Pete Beach. So if you choose that intentionally, you can go left when other people go right. Madeira Beach is probably that on steroids. Like a lot of people are buying in Indian Rocks and Clearwater and St. Pete and all Paso Grill, all these other towns, Fort DeSoto, Tierra Verde, and Madeira Beach just kind of pops in this weird eclectic mix of a small little area in between it because it's not unanimously popular and it doesn't have the whitest sand and the most home options and all these kind of things that these other towns might win out as a best mousetrap scenario. It offers a lot of affordability, and you could be seeking it just for cost alone, but you could also not want to be where everybody's trying to get. And all that to say that both of these towns are going to sit both on the sold and the median active listing price below 700K in 2025 with walkability to the beach, which is pretty unusual. All right, number 7 on my list is Fort Myers Beach, and we'll throw in the town right below it that's called Estero Island. What I'd say about this one, maybe a random take, but let's make this our comeback player of the year when it comes to the cheapest beach towns. This is an area that was hit harder than most by the recent hurricanes. And because of that, there's going to be, just like you saw in the Panhandle and these areas that are hit repeatedly, there's going to be resistance. And so people that take bets with some risk will win when it comes to a cost perspective. But these areas always rebuild. The Naples, Sarasota area especially hasn't been hit near as hard, knock on something, as a lot of areas in Florida when it comes to hurricane history because of the unique kind of geography or whatever you want to say the case is with where it's based in the state. So right now, with a median sold price of $690 and a median active listing price of $790 respectively, dealing with insurance uncertainty and all these kind of things, I do think that people that are either rebuilding or people that are coming in fresh will get some sort of advantage from the volatility that we're currently dealing with. All right, number 6 is another Sarasota, Florida favorite, and that is called Manasota Key. So when people first rushed into Sarasota, you have that was what's popular, obviously, right? And they went to the beach towns that were in Central. Lido, Longboat Key, Siesta Key, all the ones that were higher up on this list for a reason. Well, Manasota Key Beach sits adjacent to that area, and it finds itself in a median cost of the mid fives to be on the same Gulf front that a lot of these are, albeit the mainland that's adjacent to it isn't the heart of the town that people are trying to get to. So what you find is that people will choose for one of two reasons. One being primarily cost driven and then figure it out. The second being that because everybody's going to the popular towns, they don't want to be there, and they get an advantage for both things. Now, the one thing about Manasota Key in 2025, it's not the same town it used to be because they built an entire district east of it by about 15 minutes called Welland Park. That's one of the most popular master plan developments in the entire state of Florida at the moment. And so if you're all the way down there now, they're kind of pitching Manasota Key Beach as your beach, and they're building a bunch of homes around it, and there's a new downtown, you have Venice above you. So I think the people that are in there early enough will probably get some sort of accidental benefit and appreciation that no one would have anticipated 10 years ago. All right, number 5 on our list is Destin, Florida. And we talked about the Panhandle earlier, and I'd mentioned that beyond 30A being a unicorn anomaly, the Panhandle's on average really affordable. Like the Panhandle in Tampa Bay, when it comes to the state of Florida, if you're gonna live near the beach, it's one of the most affordable. Where the 30A district of Seaside and Rosemary and the adjacent towns wins on boutique and being charming and quaint and that kind of thing. Destin's your commercial side of tourist town. Not overly touristy, I wouldn't say. I mean, it's still like, I still really like it. But if you're in any of the states that border that direction of the state, or you're like Atlanta or Texas, your spot was Destin. Before 38 became into some prominence in vogue wise, I feel like less than a decade ago when it got really, really, really hot. The spot before that was Destin. You had amazing fishing, you have a lot of hotels, you have a lot of shops, that kind of thing. But it was in a more of a way you'd expect. It wasn't this like the haves and the have-nots. It was like prototypical once a year vacation spot. And I think it serves that purpose to the Panhandle like no other one does. You're really like, if you're not living there, you're visiting Destin for the most part. A lot of beach options, a lot of variety, and you have a price point in all ways you could look at it in the mid sixes still right now in May 2025. All right, number 4 on the list is Don Pedro Island. And this one's a real peacock because we basically talked about like, all right, so if Captiva Island was the more remote version of Sanibel, and Boca Grande was the more remote version of Manasota Key and Englewood, then Don Pedro is actually in between these two. There's no bridges. You can only get there by ferry. Most people are golf carting around the island. So it's the remote of remote. If that appeals to you, then for some reason it comes with, I mean, albeit not a high volume that goes into this statistic, but it comes with some perspective affordability, probably because the goods and the bads of being that remote. But you have a price point of sold average in the last 12 months under 500K, and that was get you in an interesting proximity to 2 really popular towns in the state. All right, we're down to our bottom 3, the cheapest in the state of Florida for 2025, and number 3 being Venice Island, Florida. This one is a recurring favorite. It's been number 1 on our list, and I think it was number 2 maybe last year. But I would deem this as a laid-back coastal alternative to what prototypical Sarasota, Florida living is like. For whatever reason, this place maintains a median price of mid-5s, low 6s at all times on all property types. And most of what occurred on this list as the most expensive existed about 10, 15 miles above it in the same town. Siesta Key, Lido, Longboat, Anna Maria, you saw all these names. Venice is, it's unique. You have one of the only non-barrier islands in the county. You can feel the beach breeze. It feels more coastal, it feels more laid back, all that kind of thing. This entire island can walk to the beach. And even if you zoom in on a map, you can see kind of the grid formation of it. It's a very interesting spot. You have beach variety on top of it. So you have Venice Beach. You have Brohard below it, which is the only dog beach in the county. Then Casperson, which is a lot of people deem the Shark's Tooth density capital of the world. And then the downtown's like, it's not an uppity thing. It's almost like if Siesta Key Village and the Bridge Street, Anna Maria Island downtown area had a baby. It's got what you need. It has the daiquiri deck, the restaurants, it has a harbor and that kind of area. But at the same time, it's laid back, it's historic, and most importantly, it's affordable. All right, number 2 on the list is Panama City Beach, which was last year's number 1. This is a place that if you haven't visited, it's known historically for its kind of rough and rowdy, younger, almost like party touristy crowd. And there's still an element of that during season for sure. You're gonna see an influx of tourists come in. You're gonna see some property value volatility with some of the higher priced, newer properties next to properties that aren't quite up to that same exact snuff. And it's just not generally as turnkey as like your 30As of the world. Now, the way to look at it is like, I think I would look at it as like a second look. One, it has gross affordability. There's 27 mile plus of beaches here. There's lovely components of being beachfront anywhere. So you could look at it just leaning into what other people deem as a negative, but also like laws are changing. It's not what it used to be. There's going to be an evolution of time and based on geography as well, that things will always be a certain element, but they'll change eventually.
So there could be a transitional period where you could really benefit from the median cost of like $485 in a town that is very close. A lot of things that people would deem 4, 5, 10 times the cost equivalent to. All right, number one and the cheapest beach town technically in the entire Gulf Coast state of Florida right now is Redington Beach. Now this one came as a surprise to me, probably a surprise to maybe a lot of people, and maybe you haven't even heard of this town, but it's another one that sits in the in-betweener land of Tampa Bay. It's around Madeira Beach, Treasure Island, Belleair, Indian Rocks. It's in that conversation. But I think it was like 10, 11, 12 on my list last year. But we're going to let the math do what the math does, basically. We have a lot more things that went into the formula, like I mentioned in the introduction this year. It's not just what people recently got for their homes and what they're currently trying to get. It's the cost of living of the zip code. And more importantly, one of the biggest things that weighted this one down to the cheapest is what the current average home value is at the moment, right? So yes, in a recent history, maybe people got a little higher on a limited amount of properties, and they're trying to definitely get higher now. It doesn't mean that's what the median cost of the area is. And I would say, if anything, you could disregard this one and be like, that one's not real and the rest are. That's one way to go. But you could also look at this as, can I get an advantage in a market like this where it's not like going insane in Tampa Bay? When people are trying to get this and the average is they're worth this, can you get an advantage on active listings, new construction condominiums, things like that as well? Food for thought, but that does it for our top 25.
All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's take on the Florida Relocation Guide YouTube channel. Again, my name is Adam Hancock. I hope you enjoyed my 25 update. If you did, and you have not subscribed to this channel by chance, please consider doing so. A ton of great content planned out. I think we're going to be really consistent on most Wednesdays and Sundays for the balance of the entire 2025 year, 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. And this is just the best way to see what's coming next. This is going to be, deep breakdowns of neighborhoods, best new construction, incentives offer, like everything I can possibly share, especially if you're relocating and you're particularly interested in new construction homes or something similar to it. Beyond that, a couple housekeeping items. I mentioned at the beginning, if I can assist you in the real estate market, of course, low-hanging fruit. I own a full-scale residential real estate team. It's not mutually exclusive or specialized in just new construction or relocation. It's all normal stuff, buying, selling, and or investing. We just happen to spend a dense amount of time in those areas, so we have a particular knowledge of them, but it's not excluding knowledge of other things. So if you resonate with these kind of videos, this analytical approach, my team is right off the back of it. Very much it's a conduit to the rest of the process. Please consider reaching out. We have a ton of contact information everywhere. Let me know if I can assist. We also, in addition to that, one of the best things you can do on the back of this channel is a 30-day email list. I send one handwritten email every 30 days. By the time this video posts, the one for April, it would have just went out. It is no frills, no pictures, nothing like that. It's bite-sized, really consumable information, and most importantly, it's in real time. These videos have to be evergreen. If you watch this video 6 months from now, I have to consider that as well. So I'm trying to give the most realistic data, but it is not as time-based. The email allows me to basically give stuff that might not exist in 40 days, what new construction builders are offering, what we're trying to figure out, what you can take advantage of leverage within a time period, and that's the best way to see it in a way that's a little bit more consumable. You can also reach out and say, hey, I signed up, but can you send me the last one and the one before that as well? And we can do that so you can see an example of what it looks like. And then lastly, free guide-wise, we have some more macro free relocation guides that give some of our favorite restaurants and neighborhoods and things to do in Sarasota, the state as a whole categorical. We have Redington, Lakewood Ranch, and much more coming there as well. So all those links will be below. And most importantly, thank you guys for consuming any of my content. We'll see you on the next one.